denominator, meaning the same denominator in both fractions, then the way you add them is you add the numerators, right? So if I have 1/8 plus 5/8, you add the numerators, that's 6/8. It doesn't change the denominator, you still have eighths, right? 1 apple plus 5 apples is 6 apples. Doesn't change, it's still apples, right? They don't turn into oranges. Right? So we need to find a common denominator. We need a process for this. And actually, we don't want just any common denominator. We want the least common denominator. There's always a strategy to find a common denominator. If you've got two fractions, just multiply the denominators. That would be a common denominator. In this case, if I multiplied them, I would get 24. Is that the least number that both 4 and 6 divide into? 12. And if you're good with your multiplication tables, you know that instantly. Not everybody is. So we need a process. And we're going to practice it first on this before we go to the rational expressions. But if I had to add these two fractions, the first step would have been to factor, or write this as the denominators as their prime factors. 4 is 2 squared. 6 is 2 times 3. Okay. Now, in order to make a least common denominator, you write down every factor that you see in either fraction. Here's the least common denominator. So it's got 2 and it's got 3. And they should be to the power of the most times it occurs in either fraction. So here you got a 2 squared, and here you got a 2 to the first. Here it needs to be 2 squared. It needs to be to the highest power that it is in either fraction. That's how you make a common denominator. Right? First you factor, then you include every factor to the highest power that it appears in either fraction. In this case now, notice what this least common denominator is. 2 squared times 3, 12. It's the thing that we know is actually the least common denominator. Okay. Once we've done that, then we have to choose what to multiply each fraction by so that it has the least common denominator. And I mean, this is probably not the way you would reason it out with numbers, but this is the reasoning that we're going to use when we get to rational expressions. If I'm looking at this denominator and the least common denominator, which factor is missing in this denominator? The 3. You have 2 squared is there, but there's no 3 here. So multiply by 3 over 3. Right? Which factor is missing from the second denominator? There's a second factor of 2, right? It's 2 times 3. That's 2 squared times 3. So multiply by 2 over 2. Right. Now they all have the same denominator. Right. So these have the same denominator. It's the least common denominator. So we will add and simplify the numerators. So this will be 3 times 3, 9, plus 5 times 2, 10. So this is 19 over 12. That's the process if you were dealing with fractions of numbers.